Engineer has a really great arsenal of unlocks. As you have played him more than an hour, you really do find some great use for all of them, and most are really balanced. But then there are the few stinkers, weapons that don't really find any use or are outright busted. And even though we live in the post-jungle inferno era where we don't get balance changes anymore, I've always been thinking about how Valve could change some of his weapons for the better. Be it some simple stat changes or straight up reworks. Before I talk about my ideas, I want to lay out some reasons for an unlock that could use some change. Number 1, it's either busted or rarely sees any usage. Number 2, the unlock doesn't necessarily need any changes but will be pretty interesting to consider as they will fix some problems that others might find frustrating. These are just my ideas mixed with other people's suggestions, and you don't really need to agree with them. I just did this for fun, and especially having nearly 6,000 hours, I kind of have an idea of things could be changed. So let's start off with some of the minor stuff like short circuit. This unlock is really balanced until playing payload. Being able to spam this indefinitely on the card isn't exactly fun for the enemy, it's pretty busted against soldiers and demo men. The weapon doesn't really have any use when the enemy doesn't have these two classes, as it will be better to choose a good Wrangler or the pistol, so here's how I will change this weapon. I will increase its damage from 15 to 30 as to really add some extra punching. Then I will move the secondary fire to replace the primary fire. And to make this unlock more fair, I will make it so you can't get metal from dispensers or cards when active, forcing you to take it out. Then I will lower the opacity of the ball so it doesn't flashbang you as badly as it currently does. This way you could combo a bit more with the ball and use it outside of projectile spam, and the projectile classes have a more counterplay against engineer on payload. Widowmaker is nearly perfect unlock, although that 10% damage increase is so minor that it doesn't matter. I will increase it to 20% so shooting an enemy targeted by a sentry will make a difference. And this one might be a bit controversial, so chuck this up to my bias or lack of aim. But I will probably rework Frontier just a bit. In most cases it's a direct downgrade until you get kills with your sentry. And it also counts assist too, so you get 2 crits when you kill one enemy and 1 with assist. And we all know how much people hate crits, so bear with me. I will give Frontier 1 shell as you can manage enemies more easily with 1 extra clip, but then will remove the assist crit, or just change it so that you need 2 assists to get 1 crit, so you can just throw your sentry in a random corner to get assist crits. But honestly, I'm fine with Frontier being the way it is. Maybe I just feel this way because my aim sucks and every time I manage to get myself killed from running out of ammo, and just find an excuse to use more of this cool Loki shotgun. And now we move along to the harder cases. The Southern Hospitality is a pretty boring friend when you compare it to other unlocks. I mean, Jack gives you faster build and upgrade speed, and Eureka gives you cheaper teleports and ability to teleport to spawn and exit teleporter. So Southern just making enemies bleed is pretty pointless when you go choose random crit enemies with the stock. Changing this unlock is pretty difficult when you consider the change will need to benefit a certain playstyle for engineer. As this year with the 2 feed script games we have gotten and how hard is it sometimes to reach ammo pack safely without risking dying, I talk about this idea. You get 50% more metal from dispensers and cards, but 50% less from ammo packs. You will not need to risk sight lines or leave your sentry alone to grab an ammo pack, but without dispenser you will be pretty much fucked. So keep it that dispenser up will become a bigger priority than it is now. I'm not entirely sure this will make the unlock any better than might make more engineers turtle in a corner than play more actively, but at least it's more interesting than it is currently. I am open to more suggestions as I had other idea for a rework, but to keep it consistent with the other unlocks I went with this instead. The Wrangler is really busted. With the press of a button your sentry gets 66% damage resistance and makes it really hard to destroy. Sentry being the best area of denial in the entire game is pretty important to get rid of, and making it even harder to destroy isn't exactly fun or healthy, as the Wrangler is banned in most of the comp scene. So the best course of action would be to remove the resistances or replace it with something else. Like being immune to your sentry's damage, making it so you can reach places far more conveniently with the knockback. I adore this idea as I would love to rocket jump to new places more frequently and place my stuff in unexpected places, and one of my favorite things to do on maps like Lakeside is to rocket jump and surprise my enemies. Although with not great results as it usually leaves me at low HP. but having this will make it far more viable and honestly far more fair and fun. Sure, I would miss being able to tank high amounts of damage, but it will make Ninja Engineer playstyle more viable and that would be really fun. And finally, the only bad weapon NG has, the Pomson 6000. This one is really tricky as its super and cloak training stats are the reason why this unlock ended up being nerfed to the ground. And it's just a shame as it has a cool design. So let's spice things up. Firstly, we get rid of the training aspects as they make things unfun. We make the projectile penetrate targets so your teammates don't absorb the beam and retreating enemies have a slightly nasty time. Then we will increase the projectile speed to 2400 to match Rescue Ranger speed and increase the hitbox so landing shots are actually possible now. And that's not all, we will then boost its damage. Maximum ramp up is now 85 instead of 72, and minimum is 42 instead of 32. As I don't really see why it should deal less damage than a shotgun when it's harder to shoot projectiles in the first place. With these changes we will give the engineer a pretty decent medium to long range type weapon so he can lay some pressuring fire from his little nest to help his team. And we will finally have a futuristic weapon that doesn't suck. And there we go, this is how I will change engineers' weapons. Sure, these aren't exactly perfect and I maybe focus more on the fun than practical side, but at the end of the day, if the weapon isn't fun to use, why bother? Anyway, thank you all for watching, do leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more TF2 stuff. I love TF2 and especially love playing engineers, so this was really fun to do even though it's pretty unrealistic with the timeline we live in. But hey, you can always dream, right? Thank you all for watching to the end and have a nice day.
Stupid!
Bloody hell! Please!